All righty. Well, everybody ready for the Browns Steelers tonight? All right. You know, I was told that if the Browns win tonight, it'll be the first time they are 2-0 since they were back in the Federal League. I want to thank Coach Costello for writing my jokes today. I want to recognize the club sponsors, as you can see on the screens here. Dr. Peter Ferguson, the Marion Motley Memorial Fund Scholarship, Aultcares Primetime Health Plan, and Wilkshire Golf Course. We thank them. A couple of announcements. I was given this last week and I meant to talk about it, but I want to bring this up. The Vince Costello Memorial Statue is going to be built down in Magnolia. For those of you that remember Vince, a local guy, lived down in Magnolia, grew up down there, played for the Browns, went to OU. Great family. But Vince is going to be memorialized down in Magnolia. They're going to build a statue. They're going to name the sports complex after him. Anybody that wants more information on this, and you can donate to it as well. Please see the Tozzis staff here, Chris and Mike will have more information on this. You can pick up some brochures. We'll have them for you in the next few weeks. So hopefully you'll do that. I think it's a great cause. And growing up down in Waynesburg, Magnolia, I got to see what we called Uncle Vince for many times, and it's rightfully so that they do that for him. Also, they're going to start selling tickets next week for the October 9th meeting at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So you can purchase those tickets starting next week. Also want to remind everybody the best way to stay in touch with the club is on our Facebook page. If you get an opportunity to join that, join the Facebook page. RJ puts a lot of announcements on there, updates and things like that, and you'll stay in touch that way. I want to congratulate TJ Downing, who's down here in front, for being inducted into the Glen Oak Athletic Hall of Fame. Congratulations, TJ, and also we're glad to hear your dad's doing better.
Thank you.
Again, a reminder that your ticket, your membership card, does get you into Mount Union as well as Malone and Walsh regular season athletic events. Okay, so take advantage of that. Make sure you have that and you can show them at the gate. Again, regular season. And then also want to recognize Tim Miller. I know Tim, I saw Tim earlier. Is he here? He's not here? Oh, I thought I saw him. Okay, well, what we do when you see Tim, make sure you congratulate him as he was inducted into the Canton South Hall of Distinction. Tim, a longtime baseball coach there, and very successful. So congratulations to Tim, one of our members here. And then also Jim Lindesmith celebrated a birthday yesterday. So happy birthday, Tim. Was not told of any deaths or illnesses, which is great. Good news to hear. But we always pray and keep those folks in our thoughts and prayers that are suffering and failing health. So please do that. It's time for our raffle. And our 50-50 is $195. And I'll ask Tim, make sure you see Ozzy if you win.
Fill up my cake.
Hopefully have the first three straight.
Yeah.
A white ticket.
Yeah, white ticket.
Yeah, there's California, $5.
Yes, it is a white ticket. Again, $195 and see Ozzy. 155772. Nobody? I better check mine. Oh, Becky. All right. Becky's the winner. See Ozzy.
I think so too. They may do a redraw.
You know, I meant to introduce the dais here, and I'll do that now. Our birthday boy is right over here. I was looking out there for him. Jim Lindesmith's right over here. So, Jim Lindesmith, and you met Father Whitmer. Our Vice President, Dennis Manzella, and then our speaker today, Tim Alcorn. Just a reminder, next week, we are sticking with the Cleveland sports theme. We have Matt Underwood as our speaker next week. Matt is the TV play-by-play guy of the Cleveland Guardians, so we hope that you'll come back next week and see Matt as well. So, that brings us to the introduction of our speaker today, and to do that, I'd like to bring our Vice President, Dennis Manzella.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce Tim Alcorn, audio play-by-play broadcaster. Tim begins his 5th season as the Cavaliers audio play-by-play broadcaster on the Cavaliers Audioverse after originally joining the team in September of 2019. He conducts the Cavaliers broadcast alongside Jim Jones, who is returning as the color analyst for the 13th season in the Cavaliers audio booth. Alcorn has also recently filled in on the Guardians radio network and does audio play-by-play for the OHSSA State Final Four baseball tournament annually. Before joining the Cavaliers, Alcorn spent the previous 27 years at AM 930 WEOL in Lorraine, Elyria, where he was most recently the lead sports voice, sports director, and station manager. He has been a sportscaster in Northeast Ohio area since 1985, beginning his radio career at WOBL in Oberlin after graduating from Kent State University and later joining the AM 930 WEOL in 1992. During his time at WEOL, Alcorn was the host of Countdown at the Q, From the Dugout, live on-site pregame shows before home Cavs and Indian games, respectively. He was additionally the play-by-play announcer for thousands of local high school football, basketball, baseball, and softball games, and hosted multiple programs promoting high school athletics. Alcorn has been honored with several Hall of Fame inductions over his career, including the Lorain County Football Coaches Hall of Fame, the Lorain County Boys Basketball Coaches Association Hall of Fame, the Lorain County Girls Basketball Coaches Association Hall of Fame, the Elyria Area Umpires Hall of Fame, and the Ohio High School Basketball Coaches Hall of Honor. He has also been a recipient of the Lorain County Athletic Administrators Citizenship Award and the OHSSAA Northeast District Sportsmanship, Ethics, and Integrity Award, and is a 3-time winner of the Ohio Associated Press Best Sports Broadcaster. He serves on both the Midview and Elyria Sports Hall of Fame committees and is inducted in the Make a Difference Hall of Honor at his alma mater, Midview High School. Alcorn and his wife Diane are proud parents of 4 children, daughters Kara and Alyssa, and sons Sean and Ryan. Please give a warm Hall of Fame Luncheon Club welcome to Tim Alcorn.
Good afternoon. I told Dennis he didn't have to read that entire bio. I hope it didn't bore you to tears. I've been around a while. But this is my first visit here. I have been looking forward to this all week long. So I thank you for the invitation, and I thank you for allowing me to come here and talk a little bit about the Cleveland Cavaliers and my background in broadcasting and how I ended up being the radio voice of the Cavaliers. So normally when somebody says, here's Tim Alcorn, I get like 2 to 3 hours with the microphone, but I've been told 1 o'clock hard stop, 1 o'clock. So I won't take 2 to 3 hours here today, but no, it's great to be here. What a crowd. What a fantastic meal, by the way. Thank you for the lunch from the great folks here at Tozzis. It was absolutely amazing. So, before we talk about the Cavaliers, and I love talking Cavalier basketball, I thought, aside from that long bio, I'll give you a quick roadmap as to how I ended up in the Joe Tate Perch at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, which is the honor of my life. It really is, and I'll explain that as we go through. So, I'm not a native Ohioan. I was born in Western New York, in between Buffalo and Rochester. I am a dyed-in-the-wool Bills Mafia guy. So as I was saying out front before we got started, I'm in a much happier mood today than I was on Tuesday morning after the Monday night game against the Jets. But born in Western New York and left there as a little guy. I was only 7 when my family moved up to the New England area. But I never lost my Bills fandom, and I still have it to this day. But we moved to New Hampshire when I was 7 years old, and I have 2 older brothers and an older sister. I'm the youngest of 4. And my 2 older brothers were in high school already by the time we went to New Hampshire, and they would go to Nashua High School. They would go to the Nashua High School football and basketball games. And I would beg my older brothers to take me, and they didn't want to take me. They wanted to be with their buddies and listen to the band and watch the cheerleaders and all that. So they would say, Tim, you stay home and listen on the radio. I was like, wow, listen on the radio. So WSMN, I can still remember those call letters, Weather, Sports, Music, and News in Nashua, New Hampshire. They carried high school football and high school basketball games, and I remember listening to those games because my brothers wouldn't let me go to the games. And I thought, this guy has the greatest job in the world. I remember thinking that as a little kid. He gets to go watch these kids play and announce the games, and he got in for free. And I was like, this is really cool. I think this is what I might want to do. And so that bug bit me as a little kid. I want to be a sportscaster. And from there, we stayed in the New England area. We moved to Massachusetts when I was 12 or 13. And at that time, being a Buffalo guy, I was also a Buffalo Braves fan. Now, if you NBA old-timers can remember the Buffalo Braves of Bob McAdoo and Randy Smith and Ernie DiGregorio and John Shoemate, Adrian Dantley. Well, the Buffalo Braves actually were a really good team. I rattled off a couple of Hall of Famers right there. And the year of the Miracle of Richfield here in Cleveland, the Buffalo Braves in the first round played the Boston Celtics, while the Cavaliers in the first round played the Bullets. And so the Buffalo Braves games I would actually listen to on the Celtic station, which was WBZ 1030. You can still pick it up out here, 50,000 watt station. And just to the right of WBZ 1030 was this station out of Cleveland, 1100, at that time 3WE. So I would go back and forth between those Celtics Braves games and the Cavaliers and Bullets games, because I knew the winner of the Celtics series got the winner of that series. I was hoping for the Braves. But I heard this voice on this far away radio station, 3WE in Cleveland. I thought it was thousands of miles away from where I was living in Massachusetts. And this guy, Joe Tate, booming through my transistor radio in my house in Massachusetts. And I thought, this guy is the best I ever heard. And I was just a little guy, but I grew up in New England, and they also had great sportscasters. Bob Wilson, Gil Santos, Johnny Most, voice of the Celtics. But they were classic. But I heard Joe, and I thought, wow, that's the best of the best. And ironically, a few short years later, I moved to Ohio. My dad was in the newspaper business. That's how I ended up in Elyria. He worked for the Chronicle Telegram, which is a newspaper up in Northeast Ohio, and went to school. As Dennis mentioned in my bio, I went to Kent State. And the very first press pass that I ever received, the very first media credential I ever wore around my neck, I was at WKSR, the Kent State radio station for the students, and I got a press pass to see the Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics. And I walked into the media room that night thinking, this is the coolest thing ever. And I heard these two voices. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Johnny Most and Joe Tate, sitting in the press room, having a cup of coffee before a game. And I was like, my childhood literally came rushing back to me. And to this day, I don't know what prompted me to walk up to that table. But there they were sitting there. And I kind of walked up, and Johnny Most looked at me, and Joe looked at me. And I first introduced myself to Johnny Most. I said, Mr. Most, grew up in New England, I'm at Kent. Listened to you for years while living in New England. Just honored to meet you. Now you listen to me. You don't call me Mr. Most, you call me Johnny. Okay. And I turned to Joe and I said, Mr. Tate, you know, again, I've lived in Ohio for several years now, but I also listened to you while I was in New England on 3WE. And I'm honored to meet you as well. This is unbelievable. Now you listen to me. You don't call me Mr. Tate. You call me Joe. I said, okay. Well, Timothy from Kent State, sit down. No, I don't think so. No, you came over, you sit down. Okay, so it was a moment that changed my life. And there are times that you don't realize when you're having that life-changing moment as it happens. You just think this is something that's taking place at the time. But it was a life-changing moment. And they asked me questions about my goals and my ambitions and about listening to them all those years ago in New England. And they got to get up and go to a basketball game. They got to call the Cavs and the Celtics. So Joe stood up. Timothy, I want to hear your work. You're calling baskets at Kent? Yes, I am, Joe. Well, I called him Joe. I want to hear it. You get that to me. He didn't ask me if I would mind listening, or I would mind having him listen. I want to hear it. And from that point on, Joe and I had a relationship that was as close to a father-son type of relationship. I graduated from Kent, went on to WOBL in Oberlin, kept in touch with Joe, went to WEOL, and did a ton of high school sports. And then, fast forwarding, because I want to talk some Cavs, and you want me to talk some Cavs, September of 2019, very sadly and tragically, Fred McLeod, the longtime television voice of the Cavaliers, suffered a heart attack and passed away. And at the time, John Michael was doing the Cavs radio, and Fred was on the television. So they transitioned John down to the television side, and I was brought on board to be the radio voice of the Cavaliers. And to say it is the honor of my life to sit in the Joe Tate perch, the guy that I listened to as a young man living in Massachusetts, I can't even begin to describe what a thrill that is for me. Because I often sit there in the Joe Tate perch calling Cavaliers basketball and think about that young kid in Massachusetts listening to Joe Tate on a transistor radio. And now I sit in that perch. So it's been a unique journey, to say the least, but I'm incredibly blessed. I'm unbelievably honored to be the radio voice of the Cavaliers. It's a dream come true, to say the very least. Joe Tate was the gold standard as far as NBA broadcasters are concerned. I've gotten to know and talk to all of the NBA broadcasters here in the last few years, and I always say to them, there's a Mount Rushmore of NBA play-by-play guys. I don't know who the other three are, but you're not leaving Joe Tate off that Mount Rushmore. He's one of the best who ever did it. And so for me to sit in the Joe Tate perch is just an incredible honor for me. So that's my journey as to how I got to be the radio voice for the Cavaliers. Timothy, get on with it. So here we go. So let's talk some Cavaliers basketball, and I'm excited about this Cavalier team. And I'm not saying that just because I'm employed by the Cavaliers. Coming off a year in which we won 51 games during the regular season, fourth seed in the Eastern Conference, and got a home court advantage in the playoffs against the New York Knicks. And then, hey, let's be honest, things didn't go the way we were hoping they would go against the New York Knicks. Tough series, tough matchup. And I preface that by saying anybody that thought we were going to cakewalk against the New York Knicks, they were mistaken going into the series. That was a tough matchup on paper. It was a tough matchup insofar as just the seedings were concerned. The Knicks were the 5th seed, we were the 4th seed. If you go back and look at NBA history, that 4-5 seed is usually the toughest one in the first round of the playoffs. So again, I didn't expect the Cavaliers to sweep the Knicks or beat the Knicks in 5. I thought if they were going to win, it was going to be a tough, hard-fought 6-7 game series. That was a tough matchup. Unfortunately, the Knicks handled us rather easily. To me, the good news coming out of that series is that the Cavaliers did not panic. They didn't push the panic button and say, man, we got to regroup. We got to just tear apart this roster. So I'll go through the roster and tell you why and what I think the reasons are the Cavaliers want to keep this roster intact. So we'll start in the backcourt with Darius Garland, one of the real bright stars and a young star in the NBA, was an All-Star 2 years ago, had a terrific season last year. His numbers actually went up from his All-Star year 2 years ago to last year. It was just that the Eastern Conference was loaded at the guard position, so that's why Darius didn't end up being on the All-Star team. And one of the guys that took that All-Star spot at the guard position was his backcourt mate, one Donovan Mitchell. Donovan is as good and was better than advertised when we acquired him from the Utah Jazz. Now Donovan obviously came at a heavy price. He gave up 3 players and 3 first-round picks, but he put together, as I said, that All-Star year, and he is an elite player in the NBA. As an All-Star starter last year, that just tells you that he's one of the top 10 as far as just the ability to control a basketball game. So you've got a great backcourt in Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. They weren't going to touch that. You go to the forward spot, Evan Mobley. When all is said and done, Evan Mobley has the potential and has the ceiling to be the best player on this Cavalier basketball team and one of the best in Cavalier history. He hasn't even scratched the surface of what he's going to be able to do. My broadcast partner, Dennis, alluded to, I work with Jim Jones. Jim truly believes as he develops, as he matures, as he really learns the NBA game, Evan Mobley could be a Kevin Durant type player. He has that much potential. So they weren't going to mess with Evan Mobley. In the middle, you have Jared Allen. Jared will be the first to tell you that he didn't play in that New York series the way he should have played. But he's a bright star, and the Cavs have him locked up. The 3 spot, the Cavs addressed during the offseason. So again, they didn't panic, but they also addressed their needs. And they brought in Max Strus from Miami. Of course, Miami made it to the NBA Finals last year. Max Strus was a key part of that. He can knock down shots, he can defend, and he comes from that Miami culture that winning is everything. So I think that the core group of Garland, Mitchell, Allen, Mobley, they weren't going to mess with that. They didn't. They added to that core. They added the pieces, or some of the pieces, that'll now take them to the next level. I mentioned Max Strus. Another guy that they brought in during the offseason, Georgie Niang, guard from Philadelphia, who could shoot the lights out. A career 40% plus 3-point shooting threat. And if you go back and recall the New York series, whether you watched it or hopefully you listened to it, New York was giving the Cavs all sorts of space on the wing, basically daring the Cavaliers to shoot a 3-ball. Cavaliers shot them, they didn't make them. So you needed to go out and address that need, and they did with Strus and Niang. So again, they've added some pieces. Just last week, Tristan Thompson. How much gas does Tristan have left in the tank? I don't know. I mean, we're going to find that out. But he brings a veteran presence. He brings a championship pedigree. Was on 4 straight NBA Finals teams with LeBron and that crew. And he brings physicality. And again, hearkening back to the Knicks series. Listen, Cavs would readily admit, JP Bickerstaff, Kobe, the team, they got pushed around. They got out physicaled by the Knicks. And you need guys that are going to go down there and throw some elbows and body some people up and commit some hard fouls, especially in playoff basketball. It's called a lot differently. So they go out and they sign Tristan. I don't know if Tristan will be a huge component during the regular season, but I guarantee you he'll pop off that bench during postseason basketball, because that's when the game gets more physical. It gets called differently. Anybody here that's played basketball, doesn't matter what level, high school, college, NBA, you get into tournament time in high school and college or playoff time in the NBA, all of a sudden those officials don't blow that whistle quite as often as they do during the regular season. So the Cavaliers have addressed some needs. Again, 51 win season that they now build off. So there's high expectations. I don't think there's any talk of going backwards. We're going to retool. They know they've got young guys that are really entering and haven't even approached yet their prime years. And I mentioned the NBA playoffs are a whole different game. That is something that young players have to learn. You have to experience NBA playoff basketball and get how it's called and how it's played. You can't do it by watching TNT or ESPN. You've got to partake in it. And so for guys like Garland, their first playoff appearance, Mobley, first playoff appearance, Okoro, first playoff appearance, they learned. They learned what it's all about. So I think the bar is high. I think the expectations are high. The Eastern Conference is certainly going to be a challenge. Don't get me wrong, that's a rugged conference. You have the likes of Boston and Milwaukee and Philly, whatever happens with James Harden, but Philly, right? So there are teams in the East, just like last year, the Knicks, obviously, Miami coming off, the NBA Finals. We were talking here up at the table, someone came up about, will Damian Lillard end up in Miami? I think so. More often than not, if Pat Riley wants a player, he'll find a way to get that player. I think Portland's going to hold tight as far as what they're asking for, and as they should. I mean, Damian Lillard is a superstar player, but the Eastern Conference is going to be really tough. You're going to have to battle your way through the East. But I think the goal for the Cavaliers this year is get back to the playoffs, again, secure home court advantage in that first round. Even though it didn't pan out last year, you want to have home court advantage and get past that first round. So they didn't panic. They didn't say, we've got to reshuffle the deck here. And you go back to the NBA Finals and you look at a team like Denver, that's the template. Don't panic. Let these guys learn how to play together. I mean, Denver a few years ago was talking about firing the coach and talking about making changes, and then they kind of reset and said, no, let this thing play out. And Denver will hoist the NBA championship banner once the regular season gets underway. So we're excited. We're excited. Training camp will begin the first week of October. Regular season will tip off late October, October 25th down in Brooklyn. Cavs play in Paris in January, so my wife is really looking forward to that. Although she's not flying with me, so I don't know how she's getting there, but no, we're excited. We really are. We think it's going to be a fun campaign. I think the guys are fueled by that playoff loss to the Knicks, and there's some really good talent on this ball club. So onward and upward. Q&A? I love Q&A. I love doing Q&A. So is there any part of the team that I didn't cover? You tell me, as we'll fire away here. So do I call people out? Yeah, all right. We'll kind of work our way around.
So you fly with the team to the away games, correct?
Yes, the question was, do I fly with the team? Yes.
So do you socialize with any of the players? And if you do, who do you have a close relationship to, past or present, on a more personal level? And who would you say, well, that's a really great guy?
So the question is, do I fly with the team? Second part, do I socialize with any of the players? They could be my grandkids. So no, there's not a lot of socialization going on with the team. I mean, they're a young basketball team. It is something when you get on the plane or when you're in the hotel and you're really getting that up close and personal look and you're having a conversation and you're looking them in the face and you're going, man, these dudes are young. They really are. I mean, my first year with the Cavaliers was also Darius Garland's first year, Colin Sexton's second year, and there was a couple other young guys, and I remember thinking to myself, these guys can't go have a beer after the game. And they're like 19, 20 years old. So it's a young team. But I will say this, and again, I'm not saying this because I'm speaking before this great group or I work for the team. The Cavaliers, from the top on down, they believe that character wins. And there is not one single guy on that Cavalier team that isn't a high character guy. And I mean that genuinely. There's not one of those players, one of the coaches, assistant coaches, that I wouldn't have here, have to my house for dinner. They really are upstanding individuals, high character guys. So I get along well with all of them. There's a couple that, not necessarily a friendship, but certainly you've talked to a few times. Jared Allen and I have a running gag because we fly charter, and when we get to the airplane, you got to check in. And Jared Allen told me that for the first time ever that he's been on a plane, somebody checked in before him. Alcorn comes before Allen at the top of the list. I told Jared, you make a little more money than me. You want to negotiate that? I'll be glad to drop down one. He wasn't willing to do that. So, but no, Karis LeVert, Darius, they're all great guys. I didn't even mention Karis LeVert during the offseason. That was a major signing for the Cavaliers to bring him back. He'll be a great role player. But no, they're all upstanding guys. They're great guys. Yes, sir.
Go through the rest of the roster and tell us who the backups are for all these players.
Go through the rest of the roster and talk about backups. Okay. Well, I mentioned Karis LeVert, so I think he now reverts back to a sixth man role. Again, I'm not the coach, so if JB's watching or listening, that's not my decision. But I would think Struce will start at that 3 spot, at least as I stand here today. So that brings Niang off the bench, who was signed from Philadelphia, the 3-point shooter that I talked about. Karis LeVert comes off the bench, Ohio kid from Pickerington, outside Columbus, terrific young man. They also signed Ty Jerome. He'll be the backup point guard in the backcourt as far as backing up DG and Donovan Mitchell. Who am I leaving out? Tristan. Again, Tristan will be in that front court. Isaac Okoro will also be in the front court. And there's going to be a few battles in training camp. I think if any of you watched the summer league action out in Vegas when the Caps went 6-0. Now again, it's summer league. I'm not saying this is portends an NBA title. But Evan Mobley's ironically older brother, Isaiah Mobley, really stood out. I think he's gonna battle in training camp. Isaiah had a really nice season for the Charge last year. So I think they see something in Isaiah Mobley. So I think he'll be in the mix as far as one of the front court spots, as far as coming off the bench. Damian Jones, another free agent signing. I'll throw it out there. We'll see what transpires with Imani Bates. And for those of you that are aware or perhaps need to know a little bit more, Cavs didn't have a first-round draft pick this year. So their second-round pick was the number 49th pick in the draft, 49th overall, selected a young man, Imani Bates, out of Eastern Michigan. Now, Imani, as a sophomore in high school, was the National Gatorade Player of the Year as a sophomore. I think there was a young man from Akron a few years ago that was the National Player of the Year as a sophomore. I'm not saying he's that, but the talent level is there. Incredible talent level. Went down to Memphis, didn't work out, came back, went to Eastern Michigan, and decided to declare for the draft. Now, he's got talent. There's some red flags, absolutely. But this is a classic, low risk, high reward draft choice. Number 49, right? If he doesn't pan out, it's number 49 pick in the draft, second round pick. You know, it didn't work out. But he's got talent, and if he responds to the structure, to the coaching, to the veteran leadership with Donovan and with Tristan Thompson and with those type of guys in the locker room, he could shine. I'm not saying it's going to be this year. He's got some development to do. If he doesn't follow that direction, it was a 49th pick. But I think Imani Bates is a guy that the Cavaliers like his talent. And now we'll see how he responds to the coaching and the structure of the NBA.
Any chance Ricky Rubio plays this year?
For those of you that, I'm sorry, I'll repeat the question. Any chance that Ricky Rubio will play this year? So Ricky announced, it's been several weeks now, a few weeks ago or several weeks ago, he's dealing with some personal issues, some mental health issues, and so the Cavaliers will respect that. Obviously, they'll let Ricky handle things on his own timeline, so I really don't have an answer for that.
Over here.
Yes, sir. Cadillac! Cadillac, I've been forewarned about you.
First of all, Tim, you're doing Joe Tate proud, and I want to commend you for that, brother. That was a hell of an impression, and you would be proud of you, man.
Cadillac says I do a good Joe Tate impression. Why, thank you, Cadillac. That was outstanding.
You already touched on the Knicks, so I'm not going to bring that up again. But can you explain to us what this in-season tournament is going to be about, and is there going to be money incentive for the players, or just some trophy for whoever wins it?
So Cadillac's question was if you've heard about the in-season tournament that the NBA is going to be conducting this year, and what I can share with you about that. So the NBA is trying to generate more interest within the season. It's a long season, 82 games. And so Commissioner Adam Silver, as all the commissioners do, look at other sports and look at other leagues. And one of the things that Commissioner Silver has really been intrigued by is over in Europe, they do these in-season tournaments in soccer. And it generates fan interest, and it generates listeners and viewers. So we, meaning the NBA, we are going to have an in-season tournament where you'll be broken up into brackets. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but you'll be broken up into brackets. If you win your bracket, you then advance to the in-season tournament semifinals and finals, which will be held out in Vegas. And then Cadillac also asked about incentives. There will be a financial incentive for the winning teams. So, and that's by player. These are guys making 20, 30, 35, $40 million a year. So, does $100,000 do anything for them? They haven't said anything about incentives for the play-by-play guys. I just guess we go out there and broadcast. Because believe me, if there was, I'd be rooting like hell for the Cavaliers, I'll tell you that. But there will be financial incentives for the players. But the long-term goal is to generate interest within the season. So we'll see how it plays out. There were a lot of skeptical people. Adam Silver talked about this a couple of years ago at a broadcasters meeting that I attended in New York, and he thinks it will catch on. I don't want to say it's complicated, but you'll have to follow it as far as the brackets and who advances out and so forth. But those bracketed games will count as regular season games. So there's incentive right there. Now, you don't want to just say, oh, the heck with the in-season tournament, we don't care if we win it or not. Well, those games do count as far as regular season games, so it will be a part of your 82 game schedule. So there's some incentive to win it right there. You just don't want to say, we're not going to play our guys during this. So there's incentive to win it because the games count, and there's incentive to win it simply for the incentive of whatever the monetary value will be. But one thing about NBA guys, I will tell you, they are competitive. And I think if you get them into a tournament type scenario and all of a sudden you're playing for something, whatever that may be, I think that'll get their juices going a little bit. So I'll be interested to see how it plays out. Did I answer that question for you, Cadillac?
Yeah, you did, Tim. Way to go.
All right. I'm glad I could help you out there. Thank you, I appreciate that.
What do you think about resting players' roles by the NBA?
I love it. The question was, what do I think about, again, referencing Commissioner Silver and the rules he's put in about resting players. I love it. I absolutely love it. And again, I know you're walking a fine line when you're basically telling a coach and you're telling athletic trainers that you can't determine just off the top of your head who's playing and who's not. But I also think you have an obligation to the fans. The fans are paying a lot of money to come watch guys play, and they want to watch the superstars play. And so I think the way Commissioner Silver has structured this to say, these are what we consider stars, whether it's an all-star appearance, whether it's an all-NBA, whatever the case may be. There are guidelines for resting or load management that you now have to follow. I think of two examples last year right at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, and I'll tell you what, my heart ached for the fans. It really did. Dallas, coming out of the Western Conference, they made one trip to Cleveland all year, and it's not his fault, but they were on a back-to-back. They had played in Dallas the night before. They flew up to Cleveland, got here 3, 4 in the morning, whatever it was, and they decided to rest Luka Doncic. The only chance Cavs fans had all year to see Luka Doncic, right? So again, the medical people, the trainers, the analytics will tell you, a little more injury prone on a back-to-back, especially if you're going from road or it's going from home to road. But there were a lot of fans there with Doncic uniforms on. You could just see the disappointment in their face, right? I mean, that's tough, especially little guys, little kids. They're Luka fans. They want to see him play. And the other one that stands out for me, and there were several, but the other one that stands out for me, again, Western Conference team that came in off a back-to-back. They had been in Boston the day before, Golden State, and they didn't play anybody. They didn't play Curry, they didn't play Thompson, they didn't play Draymond. They just Steve Kerr. And Steve Kerr readily admitted in his pregame presser, I hate doing this, but I'm listening to the trainers, the analytics. I'm listening to these people. They know more about this than I do. And whatever you think of Golden State and everything else, people want to see the stars. None of them played. Ironically, they still won the game. Led by Ty Jerome, who's now in a Cavalier uniform, so at least that worked out right. But no, the long answer to your question is I love it. I think fans want to see players play. And again, keep in mind television ratings and television viewers and the money that's being generated. You're sitting at home watching TNT, you want to see Luka, you want to see Curry, you want to see the stars of the game.
Can you explain the rule?
The question was, can I explain the rule? Basically, the NBA is, if they find that there's going to be parameters set for what is a star, number one. So like I said, there's going to be all-star appearances, all-NBA, that type of thing. So you're going to be defined as a player as whether or not you're a star. Then there are going to be parameters set as far as the rest period for stars. And if they determine that you are not suffering from a legitimate injury, then your team can be fined. And it will start it's six figures, and then it goes up. So every time you rest that player without a legitimate injury and or reason, your team will be fined. And they've also taken a look at it insofar as if you're resting players on the road. And that's going to play a major part because, again, for the circumstances that we had in Cleveland last year, where the only chance, especially when a Western Conference comes into an Eastern Conference and vice versa, you get one shot to see those team stars. So they're definitely going to look at it even closer. If let's just say using last year, if a Luka comes here and you rest him, you better have a pretty good reason. I don't know if I explained the rule, but that's in essence.
So is there a minimum amount of play, time that these players have to play?
Well, again, Adam Silver, to his credit, he does listen. He listens to the fans, he listens to the media partners, he listens to the, every angle that comes at him. Are you talking about minutes played?
Yeah, I mean,
in a game?
Okay.
Well, again, believe me, every coach is going to try to.
Yeah.
Right.
So you start the guy, and 2 minutes into the game, call timeout, you pull him out of the game, you never see him again. So is there a minimum amount of time that?
Minutes played, I don't know. I do know, again, this is another rule, so I'm glad you clarified that. The question was, will there be a minimum minutes played? So does Luka come to Cleveland, start the first 2 minutes, calls them out, and you're done for the night? I mean, again, I think coaches and players are always looking for a gray area,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah. So, but the other part of that is for league awards, Commissioner Silver has said you have to play a minimum amount of games.
Okay.
So MVP, Rookie of the Year, so on and so forth, and I want to say that number is 65 out of 82. So again, if you're resting a guy for 15, 20 games a year, well, all of a sudden he can't be the league's MVP. He can't be, whatever.
Well,
So
that brings up another question then, because with Cal Ripken, if he played 1 inning, that counted as a game played.
correct.
Okay? So if he plays 2 minutes, does that count as a game played?
Right. I think you're going to have to dig deep into the,
Well,
into
yeah, I
the
mean,
rule.
there's
Right.
a lot of gray area.
There will be some gray area. Guys like Greg Popovich love to find those gray areas.
Absolutely.
Pop's a master at it. Yes, sir.
I want to talk about defense in the NBA, but I wanted to go back to something.
There's defense in the NBA?
This is the All-Star game.
You said you were looking forward to this all week, and it's only Monday.
Well, I meant last week, I know. See, I'm so euphoric over the Bills' win yesterday that I'm just on cloud nine.
And who might be the best defensive player in the NBA? I mean, how important is
Jaren Jackson from Memphis is just an outstanding defender. But again, circling back to Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley in his second year in the NBA was third in the voting for Defensive Player of the Year. That young man can play, and he can block shots, he can rebound. So Jackson from Memphis is really, really good, but Evan Mobley is an elite player already on the defensive end.
on the whole, what do you think about the NBA's defense?
The question was, on the whole, what do I think of the NBA's defense?
I mean, they play it now.
Are you going to ask me to defend the defense? No, the NBA, listen, the NBA game has really changed. Did I just lose this mic? Hello, there we go. The NBA game has really changed. It has become much more geared towards offense. Fans want to see offense. Viewers want to see offense. Get Jim Jones talking about that, how the game used to be played to how it's played now. You can't even touch a guy. They want points. They want up and down basketball. Now, the other thing is the three-point line, which has really changed the game. There we go, now I hear myself, which has really changed the game. Insofar as the analytics, if you shoot 100 threes and hit 33, that's 99 points. If you shoot 102s and hit 49, that's 98 points. You're going to shoot more threes. I mean, it's three ball, right? So that has affected the defense. They talk about, not to get real deep, but they talk about 3-and-D guys, the guy that can play the wing and get out and defend. That's a 3 playing D. And so that has really changed the NBA game, the 3-ball. And again, the rules where you just can't be as physical as you used to be. So the NBA defense is something that you see once in a while.
Guys still specialize in defense.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. I talk about Evan Motley. He's a tremendous defender. And the thing about Evan, what makes him unique, is that he can get out. He has the athleticism to get out and defend a 3-point arc. But he also has the size, and he's still going to get bigger. He's going to bulk up. I mean, he's only going into his 3rd year, right? So he still has some growing to do. But he can bulk up and defend a guy down in the block. So he's a real, yes. There was one in the back.
Tim, 2-part question. You mentioned the lack of physicality, that took place during the New York series. Has the big men actually bulked up this year? And then next question is Jared Allen. Has he ever developed a true shot other than the dunk and finger roll?
Some of you obviously heard the question already. The question was, are the Cavaliers working to bulk up? And is Jared Allen working on his shot, aside from a dunk? Did I hear that correctly? Yes. I do know, really, again, I keep talking about Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley installed a weight room, fitness room in his home during the off season at a 6-figure cost. So it wasn't like going out to, your local Dick's Sporting Goods and buying some weights. He's working at it. I can't wait to see Evan in a couple of weeks, because I understand he's added some muscle. Realizing, again, these guys realize what happened. It's not like they walked out after game 5 and said, well, we'll see you in October. They realized what they had to do. Jared Allen, I know they work with Jared on different shots. Obviously, Jared's not a guy that's going to go out on the wing, so he's going to play in that low block. So to develop a bank shot, a hook shot, that sort of thing would certainly add to his arsenal, absolutely. And the Cavs coaching staff has worked with him on that. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, if you watch guys like Curry and them shooting from way beyond the 3-point line, is there ever any talk about going to a 4-point line?
Wow. Not that I'm aware of. Boy, that's going to make my call a little more challenging. Outside the 4-point arc, inside the 3-point arc, back outside to the 4-point arc. How am I supposed to keep track of all these arcs? That's not one that I've heard about, and I hope it never comes. I'll say that. So, yes, sir.
Character of the team, character of the players. Would you say this team might be very similar to the team that played the Coliseum? They're picking up Jim Jones, Brad Doherty, Mark Price, Greg Emo. Is there any similarities to this team and that team? Matter of fact, Jim Jones was on that team.
So the question was, this group of Cavaliers that I was talking about earlier, does it compare to the teams that were down at the old Coliseum, the teams that Jim was on, Jim Jones and Austin Carr, Campy Russell, that group, or even the later group, Doherty, Hot Rod, Nance, Price? Yes, I think they do compare to those teams because they play the game the right way. If you look back on those Miracle of Richfield teams or on those teams which Lenny Wilkins just did a masterful job in coaching, Doherty, Price, Hot Rod, they played the game the right way. Those were championship, elite level teams. And as far as each team was concerned, they could have and perhaps should have won world titles. There's not a person within the Cavalier organization, and not just Jim, who I work with, but there's not a person who goes back to those miracle days that won't tell you if Jim Jones didn't break his foot in the time between that Washington series that I alluded to and the Celtics series, they would have won the NBA title. Joe said that right up until you know, his last days on earth, Joe said they would have won it. Jim said they would have won it. Anybody that was around that team. Those Doherty Price Hot Rod teams, those were elite teams. Just happened to be a guy by the name of Michael Jordan. They just couldn't get by. But those were both elite level teams. I'm not saying this Cavalier team is at that level yet, but they're getting close. We got time for one or two more? 3 minutes. Yes, sir.
How is Bruce doing? Is he affiliated with the team? Is he helping out with the team? Is he doing okay?
Zadrunas? Yeah, the question was, how's Big Z doing? Is he affiliated with the team? Yeah, he pops his head in practice and in shoot-arounds once in a while and in the office. I don't know if he has an official title or an official capacity with the Cavaliers, but one of the nicest guys and one of the classiest guys you would ever want to meet. Big Z is certainly a part of Cavalier history and tradition. That's why his name hangs in the or his number hangs in the rafters. Really great guy. Yes, sir.
Has the relationship between the Cavs and the Cleveland Charge been beneficial or a wash as opposed to the Canton Charge?
That's probably an interesting question where I'm standing here. You know, location. Listen, Canton was awesome for the Canton Charge. They really were. And there weren't any negative or hard feelings about Canton as far as being the home of the Charge. I think the decision was simply, we'd like that team to be closer. And literally, they're 3 blocks away. So there's a lot of interaction now between the coaches, between the players. I know I'm actually required to go to practice every day. And there's a lot of Charge players that are at the practice because they're so close. So again, no knock, seriously, no knock on Canton. There was nothing to do with that. It was simply they wanted that team to be closer so they could work with those guys and develop those guys. Last one, who gets it? We're going to go 2 more.
I'm always intrigued with the travel schedules of these teams, and they get on a plane and they have to go 4 in the morning. Are these planes laid out so they have beds, or they? Players can't sleep in the regular plane, I'm sure.
They don't have beds, but they have great cookies. I'll tell you that. No, we fly charter, but you know, if you're flying charter, or doesn't matter, when you're getting into a city at 2:33. Oh, the question was about the planes. I'm sorry, I forgot to repeat it. Question was about the planes. Do they have beds? No. But the travel does become challenging. It does. There's wear and tear. In fact, it's interesting. I read an article a couple of years ago now, but I'm sure it's still accurate, that the primary health concern with NBA players is sleep deprivation. It's not knees, it's not ankles, elbows, because of the travel. So I know, again, that's another issue that Commissioner Silver has really tried to address. And if you look at an NBA schedule, I know we did it 3 or 4 times last year, where you stay in a city and play 2 games. So you don't travel right after the game, you go back to the hotel, get some sleep, and you have an off day. Then you play that same team again. We're doing that twice this year. I know we're doing it up in Boston. We're going to play them twice within 3 days. So, listen, the planes are nice. I mean, they're all wide-bodied seats. You got NBA basketball players, but and a big guy like me, I don't mind a wide-bodied seat. So, but travel can be challenging, no doubt. Last one.
Speaking of airplanes, is the attitude and atmosphere a lot more fun on a plane when they win than they lose?
No.
Can you tell the difference? At that level, millionaires or whatever, you can tell?
And there's a little more bounce on the plane when you come off a win. Absolutely. No, I mean, generally, well, first of all, it's compartmentalized. I don't think I'm giving away any big trade secret here. The players are in the front. The coaches are in the middle. And literally, from the time those coaches get on the plane until the time we land in the next city, they are on their computers. They're looking at game film. They're looking at the game we just played or the upcoming opponent. And then in the third section of the plane, me, and the other guy, the media guys, the broadcasters, John Michael, that sort of thing. But as you sit in that third section and you look into the middle section, I mean, it's just like a spaceship. All these computers are all just watching film. So they're already moving on to that next game. I think that's it, right? Hey, I can't thank you guys enough. This was